I am curious why in your opening statement you did not mention Yemen. So my first question to you is, did anyone in the administration suggest or direct you not to mention Yemen in your opening statement?
Absolutely not. It was for time.
Okay. Would you agree that Yemen is the world's worst humanitarian catastrophe right now?
It's certainly right up there. If it's not first, it's first, second, or third. We face
what would be a worse humanitarian catastrophe than Yemen right now?
I mean, you could point to the Ebola crisis. You could point to what's happening in Mozambique, in Zimbabwe, and Malawi, which is the worst humanitarian crisis in 2 decades. So I don't mean to be argumentative.
Right.
I've just
So
got
reports
a lot
are
right now.
from various places, maybe up to 14 million people are at risk of famine. That's pretty bad, right?
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
yes.
So how much is USAID trying to help out in Yemen?
A ton. We're the largest bilateral. Again, I can't speak as with the recent contribution that was made by, I think, Saudi Arabia. We have been the largest bilateral humanitarian donor in Yemen.
How much money is that?
$721 million since October 2017, and just a matter of weeks ago, we announced an additional $24 million in humanitarian assistance. I meet monthly with the NGOs that are working in Yemen to talk with them about the challenges that they're seeing on the ground. So we are very heavily engaged in Yemen, and I agree that it's a top priority.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that Yemen is, in fact, a top priority.
Very much so.
Because I could not tell that from your opening statement.
Again, not intentional.
Okay, thank you. So if the UN brokered deal on Hodeidah collapses and the port city is cut off by fighting, what contingency plans, if any, are in place within USAID to deal with the humanitarian fallout?
Again, the Deputy Secretary of State and I meet monthly with all the NGOs working, representatives of the NGOs working in Yemen, always drawing up contingency plans. To be very clear, the work that we do, the humanitarian assistance, is not an answer. A political solution is the answer. Ours is treatment of suffering. And so we are constantly looking at ways for the most effective, efficient delivery that we can do. We partner.
Thank you. Would you be okay if we, in written questions, if you provided us
absolutely
contingency plans?
Yes.
Right, thank you. Now, are there any countries or parties in Yemen right now trying to block humanitarian assistance?
I'll have to get back to you in writing. Conflict itself is what's blocking humanitarian assistance.
So if you can get back to us,
the security situation is what is making it difficult for us and our partners to be able to provide the relief we all want to provide.
Thank you. Now, there are other parts of the world where you do have either organizations or countries specifically trying to block humanitarian aid. And so my question is, what unilateral and multilateral tools does the U.S. government have to facilitate the delivery of humanitarian assistance and to hold accountable those who obstruct it?
First off, the obvious answer is diplomatic and economic pressure. A classic example is Venezuela. And Nicolas Maduro's efforts to block the delivery of humanitarian assistance. We apply diplomatic pressure, political, economic sanctions. In other parts of the world, it is constantly looking for innovative delivery mechanisms to do our best to try to get humanitarian assistance in.
So you would support using targeted economic sanctions for those who try to obstruct humanity?
Well, again, that's a question for the State Department and Treasury. Our piece is the delivery of humanitarian and development assistance. We're the operational part of that, so I would refer you to the Secretary of State or Secretary Mnuchin.
Thank you. I appreciate your time, and I yield back.